Happy New Year. I'm Francie. I'm a Reiki master and psychic medium, as well as an author and a teacher. Every year at the beginning of the year, I like to do cards for my clients. I'll pull a card for each month out of the year to kind of give them a flavor, a sense of what's to come or the energy around each month out of the year. And I thought for the first time that it'd be kind of neat to do that for the United States as a whole. So I pulled 12 cards, one for each month, using 4 different angel card decks. And I will feel into what they mean for the country as a whole, and I'll walk you through each month out of the year. All right, so the first card deck that I'm using is the Archangel Oracle cards. And the first card I pulled for January is Divine Order. And as you can see here, the angel is balancing the scales, but from our perspective, things don't look balanced yet. Things seem a bit uneven. But from the higher perspective, things are as they should be. So even though it might look and feel a little chaotic, it might feel disruptive, it might feel scary, it might feel not the norm, not the usual for January, know that it's divinely orchestrated. What does that mean? How does that mean? I'm not sure yet, but it's this feeling of like, even on the surface, things might appear to be falling apart. Things might appear to be out of balance, out of whack, but trust that this is somehow part of the divine order, the divine picture, because the angels are in charge. Our higher self, the higher beings are in charge of balancing those scales and righting some wrongs and making sure things are equal and balanced again. The other thing about January that's interesting, and I tell this to my clients too, is that sometimes January, the card for January can be also the theme for the entire year. So keep this in mind as the rest of the year develops, not just for January. Okay, so the card for February is Healthy Lifestyle. Now, with regards to this being for the whole United States, how I would interpret that, what I'm feeling into it is there's going to be a time in February where we as a country are seeing things that aren't working, things that are maybe broken that need to be fixed. It's almost like a spotlight's going to be shed on them. And so don't be dismayed if things feel kind of out of balance, kind of like we saw in January's card, but also it's about what we can do to make change in a way that's healthier for the entire country. And a lot of times that starts locally. So if you see something on the national level that doesn't feel right with you, doesn't sit right with you, isn't part of the United States you want to belong to for whatever reason, what can you do locally to empower your community, empower yourself to be the example that you want to see out in the world? But it's also making me feel like, as a personal directive for anyone watching this video, if you're feeling uneasy with what you see in the nation in February, do pay close attention to your self-care. If you need to turn off the news, turn off the news. If you need to go for a run, go for a run. If you need to say, no to certain things because it's going to cause you anxiety, that's fine. So it's almost like a sense of, if you need to turn things off for a while to kind of regain some balance and some peace within, feel free to do so. You'll be supported in that. So the card for March is really interesting. It's clairsentience. Another word for that is clear sensing or empath. And it means to feel energy. What's interesting about this is, how do we interpret that for the country as a whole? And it feels like in March, we're going to have an opportunity to really kind of get in touch with that collective energy of what it means to be part of a larger government, a larger nation, a larger establishment. And so pay close attention to your own internal feelings, because you're tapping into the collective, but also you could be absorbing energy from the collective. And so trying to maintain that inner peace is going to be really important. The clairsentience, it feels like there might be some natural disaster type stuff or some weather-related phenomenon that is going to make us feel collectively for each other more. It might be like a bonding experience of some kind for the nation. It doesn't feel like it comes with ease and grace. Unfortunately, it feels like it comes with a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of upheaval. But just pay attention to how you feel and prepare for what you can do to maintain your inner joy and your inner love during the times of turmoil. So the next couple of cards, I'm going to be using a different card deck, the Angelic Hope deck by Leanne Thomas. And the first card I pulled is for April. And let me describe what's going on here in this card. So there's a woman who's on her knees in prayer, and she's got two angels in the background. And behind her, you might not be able to see it, is actually a forest that's on fire. And so for April, it feels like the country as a whole is being brought to its knees by yet some new disaster, some new trauma, some new issue that's going to force a lot of us down onto our knees to pray for help, to ask the higher beings to guide us, to kind of help us through the traumatic times that we're experiencing. This is also a reminder of the power of prayer, how even if you feel like the world around you is falling apart, you can absolutely make a difference by sending out prayer, asking the angels to help, maintaining your own inner peace, again, doing things locally that feel, like it's going to raise the vibration of love and empathy and compassion. That does have a trickle effect across the entire nation. And so even if you feel like you can't make a difference, like maybe the problems are too big, please don't feel that way. You are a powerful being of light that can absolutely create and affect change. So don't be discouraged, even if you feel like the forest is on fire around you. All right. So May is a really positive feeling card. It feels like we've come through kind of some dark times, and now we've got people that have shown up to problem solve and work together to create solutions. Both of these women are surrounded by books, which to me is a symbol of wisdom, of insight, of knowledge, of experience. And it feels like they're also from two different parts of the world coming together and working together, whereas in the past they might not have. And so I feel like there's a bridge that happens, on the political spectrum. We can see it as maybe the Republicans and the Democrats working together to form solutions that are going to affect the entire country, not just Republicans, not just Democrats. And so it feels like there's a bridge created. It feels like there's solutions showing up. It also feels very adult. It feels like come May, the adults show up and start to get work done. And that's a very reassuring thought for those of us that follow the political spectrum pretty closely. So for June, much like May, there's kind of this deep breath that we can take. So we've got folks in a park that are doing Tai Chi. And for those of you that don't know about Tai Chi, it's this beautiful art form of moving energy around the body and connecting with the earth and connecting with your own chi, your own energy. And it feels like for the country as a whole, in June, things start moving. The energy of the country starts moving. We get unstuck, but it's in a healthy way, and it's in a very slow-paced way. So Tai Chi isn't a very fast martial arts. It's a very slow, deliberate, thoughtful action. And so it might look like nothing's happening on the surface, but believe and trust that the energy is moving in the right direction in June. So for the next set of cards, I'm using the Archangel Michael card deck. And for the month of July, the card that got pulled was Your Home is Protected by Angels. And like some of the previous months, there's a fire in the background here. And it's the sense of, okay, we're at it again. We got a breath in May. We got a breath in June. Now things seem to be on fire again. But rest assured, there is a higher divine plan. Just remember in January, we've got the angel that's trying to balance the scales. Remember that in July, because it feels like things get off kilter, off balanced again. The other thing I'm really drawn to in this card is the word home. Like, your home is protected by angels. And so even though this is a reading for the whole United States, I do feel like it's important for you to look at your own individual home and your own individual life around you, and know that you are ultimately safe, you are ultimately protected. And again, is there somebody else in your community locally that you can help also make feel home and safe in the community that you share with each other? And so July feels a little bit rough. It feels like there's some civil unrest, some upheaval, as well as potentially more natural disasters like fires and wildfires and things, especially on the Pacific Northwest coast. So ask the angels to come and help and to mitigate anything that you see around you that feels overwhelming and a little bit scary. Now, the card for August is also fascinating. It's all about forgiveness. And you can see here a baby and a lamb are being held by an angel. And I want to focus on the energy of forgiveness with regards to the country at large, because it feels like there is some acknowledgement of wrongs that have happened historically that will be brought to the surface in August. So whether that's reparations, whether that's some acknowledgement of the horrible history that the United States has had in the past that it wants to correct, or it comes to the surface again. But there's something around forgiveness in a way that doesn't excuse what has happened in the past, but acknowledging that it was wrong and that we've healed and we're ready to move forward from it. So again, this feels like a civil unrest, kind of similar to July type energy. And so I'm hoping and I'm praying that there is some corrections being made to some of the things that the United States historically has done to its underserved and marginalized communities. So we're hopeful for that, hopefully in August. For September, the card is energy healing work. And it feels like we're going to need, as a collective, to send some healing energy, some positive energy if you're a Reiki practitioner, sending some Reiki to the United States at large. I do feel like there's going to be some energetic shifting that's happening. And so the more that we can collectively get together and send energy healing to the country as a whole, the better the outcome and the easier the transition from what's taking place to the next chapter where we're going to go. So it feels like there's kind of like what we saw Tai Chi in a few months prior. This feels like the energy is really starting to move now. There really is going to be a shift. It feels a bit like a tipping point of sorts, and we can help it go in the direction of light and love and healing if we collectively, again, keep United States in our hearts, send some prayers, ask the angels, especially around the month of September. It feels like there's a shift there. What I'm hearing is it's about kids going back to school, things starting their routine again, and that's an opportunity for us to take another look at what's working, what's not, and to send some positive energy healing towards our intentions of what we'd like to see for the country in September. So with the last few cards, I'm going to be using the Angel Tarot deck. And for the month of October, which is the 10th month, I pulled the 10 of Fire card. Take a close look at that. Fire is all about passions. It's all about what's in your heart, what drives you, what motivates you, what moves you from a heart perspective. And if you can see here, the dragon is kind of hoarding its treasures close to its heart, kind of keeping it close, but almost in a too restrictive way, in an overly protective way. And so from the perspective of the United States, it feels like there's going to be some legislative restrictions, things that might be to the benefit of few, to the detriment of many. And so what we can do as a collective is to kind of tune into that energy and know that it's just around fear. People are reacting out of fear. They're making decisions based on fear. You know, if our neighbor gets something, that means I don't get that same thing, which is absolutely not true. It's not how the universe works. And so don't let the energy of hoarding or, you know, keeping things for myself and being a little bit overly protective and overly maybe narcissistic, don't let that energy seep into your own world, as I feel it might be a bit of the collective energy come October. For the month of November, we've got the card King of Air. And air is all about mental capabilities, all about, you know, the thinking mind, um, the logic, practicality of things. And it feels like with this card, we get a sense of a leader that shows up that is very wise and focused on diplomacy and focused on leading within the Congress. So it feels, if you can see behind, he's got all of these unicorns kind of lined up, and he's walking back and forth and kind of cheering them on and giving them direction and motivation. It feels like we might get this feels political, like a new politician or new leader in the United States that is a strong rallying call to unify and to get things done. It feels very positive. It doesn't feel like this person is very active up until November, so I can't tell if it's somebody that might already be in the political sphere or somebody brand new that comes in. I'm not exactly sure, but it feels like there's a new energy of leadership and diplomacy in November. And it doesn't feel necessarily international. It feels like more of getting both sides of the Congress and the House and the Senate to kind of work together to get some things done. So it feels like there's a coming together, and it feels very motivated in solutions versus creating more problems. So that's a good thing for November. And finally, the card for December is 10 of Water. Water representing the emotions of things, the feelings that you have around a certain topic or discussion. And 10 is a very powerful balancing number. It's got 5 on one side, 5 on the other. Fives in general mean there's change coming. 10 also indicates the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, which is very fitting given that it's December, so the end of the year. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it might feel energetically that the country is underwater, that we are kind of maybe drowning in our emotions, drowning in our feelings. But keep in mind, the things that are around you immediately, they're still working fine. You still have food on your table. You still have a roof over your head. If you've got a little extra, what can you do to help those around you? And again, it's a reminder of just because the collective might feel overwhelmed and emotionally unstable doesn't mean you have to, right? You don't have to tap into that, especially if you know that it's coming. You can set aside extra time for self-care, extra time to be outdoors in nature. But also, it's a reminder of the balance card from January. Things need to come back into balance. And sometimes, in order to come back into balance, we've got to disrupt things. And that's disruption means change, and that can mean a lot of emotional upheaval. That's normal. That's part of what happens with change. And so breathe into it. But again, you don't need to let it affect you personally. But I do feel December might be a little bit rocky, but it's always a little bit rocky before the calm of the storm. And so, keep in mind it's temporary, and it feels like it's going to smooth out as we end the year and move into January of 2026. So overall, 2025 has some bumps in the road, some things to be mindful of, some things that maybe you can prepare for so you're not overwhelmed by it. But as long as you maintain your inner light and your inner peace, the things externally around you won't have an effect on you. And so what can you do to help maintain that peace? Is it building more solid relationships? Is that doing volunteer work in your community? Is it being an activist around issues that you're passionate about? So follow your heart, don't get overwhelmed, and know that with change comes tremendous opportunity. But going through that birth canal can be a bit of a challenge. So just remember to wait for that light at the end of the tunnel. If you'd like to learn more about the energy as a whole for 2025, you can check out a blog article that I wrote, and I'll post the link here. So wishing you a very healthy, happy, prosperous, safe, peaceful, joyful, and loving 2025. Take care.